Welcome to episode 6 of the 1001 Movies podcast. This time I'll be talking about Ernst Lubitsch's 1939 romantic comedy, Ninotchka.
I beg you, Sergeant. Smile.
What?
Will you smile?
Why?
Well, just smile.
At what?
At anything. At the whole ridiculous spectacle of life, at people being so serious, taking themselves pompously, exaggerating their own importance. If you can't think of anything else to laugh at, you can laugh at you and me.
Why?
Because we're an odd couple.
Then you should go back to your table.
No, I can't leave you. I won't, not yet, not until I've made you laugh at least once.
Ha ha. Now go back to your table.
Oh, that's not a laugh. I mean a laugh from the heart. I know. I'm going to tell you a funny story. Now, wait a minute, let me think of one. I've got it. Well, it seems that there were two Frenchmen who went to America.
On which boat?
On which? Oh, let's drop it. I don't think you'd care very much for that one anyway.
Probably not.
Here's a great one. Maybe it's not so good. Let's forget it. You like Scotch stories?
Never heard one.
Well, here. Two Scotchmen met on the street. And I don't know the name of the street. It doesn't matter anyway. One's name was McGillicuddy. The other one's name was McIntosh. McGillicuddy said to McIntosh, "Hello, Mr. McGillicuddy." McIntosh said to McGillicuddy, "Hello, Mr. McGillicuddy." Then McGillicuddy said to McIntosh, "How's Mrs. McIntosh?" And McIntosh said to McGillicuddy, "How's Mrs. McGillicuddy?"
I wish they'd never met.
So do I. Well, how's this one? Two men are looking at the moon. One of them says to the other, "Is it true that a lot of people live on the moon?" The other one says, "Sure, it's true, about 500 million. Then the first one says, "Whew, they must be pretty crowded when it's half moon." So you don't think that's funny?
No.
Well, it seemed funny to me when I first heard it. Maybe the trouble isn't with the joke. Maybe it's with you.
I don't think so.
Well, I'll give you one more chance. Here goes. When I first heard this joke, I laughed myself sick. Here goes. A man comes into a restaurant. He sits down at the table and he says, "Waiter, bring me a cup of coffee without cream." 5 minutes later, the waiter comes back and says, "I'm sorry, sir, we have no cream. Can it be without milk?" Not funny, huh?
No.
Well, it is funny. Everybody else thought it was funny. Maybe you didn't get the point. I'll tell it to you again. A man comes into a restaurant. Did you get that?
Yes.
All right. He sits down at the table and he says to the waiter, "Did you get that?"
Yes.
All right. It isn't funny so far, but wait a minute. He says to the waiter, "Waiter, bring me a cup of coffee." And 5 minutes later, the waiter comes back and says, "I'm sorry, sir, we're all out of coffee." Oh, no, you've got me all mixed up now. Just down the table, he says, "Waiter, bring me a cup of coffee." And 5 minutes later, that's it. He says, "Waiter, bring me a cup of coffee without cream." And 5 minutes later, the waiter comes back and says, "I'm sorry, sir, we have no cream. Can it be a glass of milk?" Oh, you have no sense of humor.
Released during World War II, Ninotchka begins with the title card reading, "This picture takes place in Paris in those wonderful days when a siren was a brunette and not an alarm, and if a Frenchman turned out the light, it was not on account of an air raid." I think it bears mentioning that it also takes place during a time when the Russian people lived in fear of their own shadows, knowing that exile in Siberia could only be moments away, a message that the film slams over your head with an iron frying pan. Ninotchka begins with 3 Russian operatives in Paris, where they've been ordered to handle the sale of a priceless necklace taken from an ousted Russian duchess who also happens to be living in Paris. When her beau, Leon, played tongue-in-cheek by Melvyn Douglas, learns of this, he tries to intervene legally. He later spends a romantic evening with a lady, the titular Ninotchka, whom he soon learns is a Russian emissary sent to block the Duchess's claim to the jewelry. What results is a romantic comedy worthy of Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, with the previously stern and Leninist Ninotchka rejecting her ideals for the life of a Francophile in her beloved Paris. The 3 Russian operatives follow her lead, and naturally, everybody lives happily ever after, far from the clutches of the communist regime. Known for his comedies of manners, director Ernst Lubitsch made films in Germany from 1918 to 1922, when he moved to Hollywood as a result of a contract with Mary Pickford. Many of Lubitsch's films took place in and around the quote-unquote high life of Europe, such as 3 Women, Kiss Me Again, Lady Windermere's Fan, and So This Is Paris. His sophisticated comedies were a change from popular taste at the time, such as Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. Ninotchka is no exception, and Lubitsch probably delighted in flipping the concept of socialism the proverbial bird, and even included a stab at the Nazi Party. Although whether or not this latter addition is Lubitsch's own contribution or that of the screenwriters is unknown. Ninotchka was jointly written by Charles Brackett, Billy Wilder, and Walter Reich, and they were nominated for an Oscar for this film. Although they didn't snag it, all 3 would go on to win Academy Awards in the next 20 years, and Billy Wilder even managed to win 6. This in itself speaks for the dynamic talent behind the screenplay, and of course the witty exchanges on screen reflect this. Even by today's standards, the film still has a handful of laugh-out-loud moments, including Leon's attempts to make Ninotchka laugh in a cafe, the exchanges among the 3 Russian operatives, and a line about cigarettes delivered with deadpan brilliance by Greta Garbo. Another Academy Award nomination went to Garbo as Ninotchka, known for playing morose and tragic characters. The filmmakers enjoyed her comic performance so much, in fact, that they marketed the picture with the tagline Garbo Laughs, along with Ninotchka, don't pronounce it, see it. Despite her success, this was to be Garbo's penultimate film. After appearing in Two-Faced Woman 2 years later, she announced her retirement as an actress, proclaiming the phrase that has been synonymous with her name, I want to be let alone, not I want to be alone, as many have quoted. The anti-Russian sentiments in the film obviously ruffled some feathers, and it was banned in Russia. This is no wonder, as a great deal of emphasis is placed on the poverty of the Russian people and their willingness to demand less in France when more could be provided. The Russian characters aren't even permitted to enjoy an omelet or sing French songs with fear of being sent to Siberia. It's unclear how much the screenwriters actually knew about life in Russia, and I really can't help but feel that some of this was based on exaggerated stereotypes. What did I think of the film? Ninotchka still stands up as a solid comedy 75 years later, with wonderful performances by everyone included. 1939 is a standout year for Hollywood, with productions like Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz, so it's really no wonder that this fantastic film failed to win a single Academy Award. This is the first time I've seen Greta Garbo in a film, and she somehow manages to exude charm, sexuality, and deadpan seriousness all at the same time, a feat that can't be matched by most of today's screen actresses, if any. It was a shame that she chose to retire from acting shortly afterward. Melvyn Douglas is equally enjoyable as Leon, the flippant Parisian who refuses to be beaten by Ninotchka's Russian determination and is consistently dropping jokes to win her over. Of course, in true Hollywood fashion, the two end up in love in Paris by the conclusion of the movie, but the saccharine content really doesn't detract from the quaint comedy that it is. That's all I have to say about Ninotchka. Tune in for episode 7, when I talk about the 1975 Indian film Diwar, directed by Yash Chopra.